Hi there. Welcome to another review. The film for today, as you know from the title, is Death of a Unicorn, a A24 film directed by Alex Sharfman, starring Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Will Poulter, among others. I admit I missed this film when it debuted in theaters, but was able to catch it on HBO Max. So how does this film stack up against A24's slate of films? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. If you are new here, these reviews are not constrained by refraining from spoilers. These reviews go over the pros, cons, and main takeaways that I gathered from the film, as well as my overall thoughts and opinions on the movie itself. If you have yet to see the film and would like to, please give it a watch and come back to this review once you are all caught up. With the intro out of the way, let's talk about the positives for this film and what myself, critics, and others have been enjoying about it. The first positive for this movie would definitely have to be the strong performances despite the poor script. The cast of this film is quite impressive as all of them are quite notable and respected, whether they're leading TV shows or have been previously cast as the lead of other movies. The standout aspect of Death of a Unicorn is undeniably its cast. Paul Rudd brings his usual charm, while Jenna Ortega continues to expand beyond her breakthrough performances as Wednesday Addams. Will Poulter and Richard E. Grant give performances that veer into absurdity and represent characters you're not supposed to like. Now, this isn't a film in which anyone will win an Oscar or anything like that, but without the casting choices, this movie was able to get at least some solid performances, despite how much the script and the end holds them back. But more on that a bit later, as this is, for now, the positives. Positive number two would have to be the ambitious concept. After watching the trailer, it's clear that this movie is attempting to provide a unique twist on how unicorns are often portrayed in the media. Essentially, the core premise of this movie turns majestic unicorns from symbols of innocence into terrifying and, well, violent creatures, turning this film into a unicorn slasher film. There's also a clear metaphor at play here about the evils of capitalism, science, animal abuse for the sake of notoriety and profitability. And for a moment, the film provides you with that it may lead to something deeper to say. However, this spark is short-lived as the concept isn't fully realized by the credits. Nonetheless, the ambitious concept in theory could be reworked to present something with a bit more depth and nuance. Yes, I get it. Talking about berserker unicorns seems a bit out there to begin with, but I've always appreciated how A24 films take risks. Just this ambitious concept wasn't fully realized. Now to the negatives. Man, oh man, there are plenty of negatives to be said about this movie, other than the film's wasted potential. This film is just so on the nose predictable. As I was watching the film, it became apparent that after the first 20 minutes that this movie was unfolding just how I was thinking it would. But you see many of the film's directorial beats coming a mile away, especially during the scenes where the unicorns are producing all kinds of carnage. The film ultimately unfolds in an ununique way, relying on the many tropes that you've come to know with previous slasher or horror films. The characters are also written to not provide much depth into their interactions. In fact, the two main leads of this movie, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega, are criminally underutilized. We start the film with them and end with them, but we ultimately don't grow or learn much about their dynamic other than through exposition dumps as the lead characters attempt to grasp what the heck is going on. However, unlike some of those more notable slasher and horror films, the CGI or practical effects, the kills are at least interesting to watch. In this film, I found myself consistently being taken out of the story when it's hard to take the unicorns seriously when their CGI is rendered in scenes, especially during scenes of carnage, are done so poorly. The CGI looks unfinished and at times distracts from the tension or horror the film was trying to build. Throughout this film, I encourage you to take note of every moment in which the CGI looks off, as I eventually lost count myself. While I admit that the budget of this film was only $15 million, it should have spent more money on its CGI and provided more work into delivering a solid script with interesting or unique characters. Sure, that may have involved cutting some of the amazing cast, but it was needed to put more money where it needed to be. Visually, this movie just isn't worth rewatching, and I don't say this often, but I'm glad I didn't watch it when it was in theaters. And based on the box office results, I'm not alone in this. So we've talked about what the film gets right and what doesn't work for the film. Let's now talk about some of the key takeaways that I gathered. The first key takeaway from this movie is that subverting innocence doesn't automatically create depth. You know, at its core, Death of a Unicorn tries to take something universally symbolic, of purity and majestic innocence, a unicorn, and invert that into something deadly and carnage worthy. This inversion could have been a compelling metaphor for the loss of innocence in the modern world, environmental exploitation, or how wonder is often destroyed by corporate interests. However, the film doesn't earn the weight of that subversion. Simply flipping a symbol doesn't make it meaningful unless the narrative commits to unpacking what that transformation says about us. The film gestures at these ideas, but doesn't follow through in a way that provokes thought or, well, emotional impact. This, of course, leads me to my second key takeaway: the price of moral compromise. And speaking of not following through, one theme the film brushes up against is complicity, the idea that people will often compromise their ethics for the promise of profit, advancement, or survival. Several characters are presented with moral crossroads, but their decisions feel rushed or unexamined. This is a missed opportunity because there's something universally relevant about watching people justify terrible decisions in the name of progress. A24 films often shine when they explore the quiet unraveling of morality, but Death of a Unicorn treats those moments as plot devices rather than emotional turning points. In the end, Death of a Unicorn stumbles in many, many areas. However, there is still something commendable about its ambitious premise. Cinema should always be a place for creative risks, but it should be done with those risks in mind. Death of a Unicorn is an uninspiring entry into A24's catalog, which is a disappointment because some of my favorite films are backed by A24. It has a cast full of talent, a concept and premise that is unique, and moments where you glimpse the film it could have been. Unfortunately, inconsistent tone, weak CGI, and surface level storytelling hold it back from reaching the heights of its more iconic A24 peers. In terms of ranking, this film unfortunately earned a 1 out of 5. While not on par with other A24 films, Death of a Unicorn is a ride that I wouldn't want to take again. It's truly unfortunate based on the casting alone, and like I've been reiterating throughout this review, the unique premise. So yeah, this film wasn't for me. However, let me know what you enjoyed or disliked about this film, and if you did happen to have a good time with this movie, please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next time on the next Film Sense with Brian.